Welcome to the Podium Psychology Podcast with me, your host, Hugh Gilmore. The Podium Psychology Podcast is recorded in front of a live audience. We offer one of you, the audience, an opportunity to have a live psychology session with me, powered by a motivational interviewing approach. Then you, the audience, get to ask questions. There are no edits. This is a live, unplanned session. The problems are real, and so is the impact. Now, let's begin with this episode's volunteer. Okay, Jacob, so what's the issue that you want to discuss today that I can help with?
Starting to get back into exercising again, really, is the general gist of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a professional athlete, and I've since retired. Had some, issues since then. I'm just really struggling to. I've lost the joy of exercising that I used to have. Is really how it feels all the time.
Mm-hmm. You've lost the joy of exercise. It was very important to you, and you've had some issues.
It was very important to me. It was big, obviously part of my career for 10 years, thereabouts. But I also always thought I enjoyed it almost as much as the sport that I did. So I
Mm-hmm.
never thought I'd have an issue continuing that once I stopped. I always thought, I'm just going to find something else, find another direction to take it in, different style of training. But it's been a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Okay. So you've lost this passion, and it's difficult to try and do something without that.
Yeah, I can force myself. I've always, had the willpower to, even on the bad days, to go to, when I was an athlete, go to training, go to practice, go to the gym, whatever it may be. But now, obviously, it feels like that's missing, and I don't have that same drive all the time to go and do it. It feels like I know I want to do it, I know I need to do it, but at the same time, I don't really need to do it anymore. And I just can't always. It's almost like I can't be bothered a lot of the time.
You want to sometimes. You used to have the power to be able to do this, but actually, can't be bothered sometimes. But and it sounds like other things have become more important in your life.
Yeah, 100%. But building a career, spending more time with my girlfriend, and doing the sort of stuff that I couldn't do when I was having to be at practice all the time, and all the pressures from playing sport. So that's more of a priority. But I still feel like I have the time. Like I have time before work, for example, or now even considering after work. It's definitely not there are more things that are more important. Like I sort of squeezed all the juice out of exercise to be an athlete, and now it's like, okay, now let's focus on the next part of my life more than that. But it's still important because I get frustrated when I don't do it, and it's very important to me to stay healthy more than anything as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to get healthy and stay healthy, and that's really important to you. Well, what type of exercise is it you would like to do this?
I like lifting weights. It was always part of the necessary, but I always really enjoyed it. So being strong and lifting weights.
Mm-hmm.
But I also really now know, and I put a value on sort of cardiovascular, so just being the general fitness, because that's something I never had to think about because I went to practice. It just took care of itself, and now I think, okay, I need to go on a run for 40 minutes to an hour, whatever it may be, to actually just look after my heart. And I had some more background to that about a year ago, was it? Was it 2 years ago now? Recently, I can't remember the exact date. I had a spontaneous collapsed lung, which I walked around with for 5 days, and I always think if I wasn't as fit as I was, then I probably would have died. So I want to be able to sort of still have that confidence in myself and feel fit. I always think like I can look good. Like in my own opinion, I still look good. I've still got muscle mass and that sort of thing, but just feeling fit, I don't need merely for that to go running and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds impressive that you had I mean, impressive is the wrong word, but you had a
No,
collapse.
it's a good word.
Yeah, a collapsed lung that could have killed you, but because you were so fit, it didn't. And that sounds like you definitely were in fine shape. Um, and I suppose then that really brings home the meaning of why exercise is so important for you, because it's not about, I suppose people talk about getting healthy, but actually, in your experience, it's being robust against death.
Yeah, yeah, that's and one way I've actually thought about it is be harder to kill, as dramatic as it sounds, but it's also comparing to because of the level I was at, to then compare myself to that,
Mm.
it's hard to then do the workouts now. I suppose it's another barrier that I have to sort of get over mentally and be like, yeah, okay, that was then, here is now. It's different goals, but it still can be difficult just because, I mean, maybe it's part of what got me to the level that I got to, but it's nice to feel like you are the best. But when you don't have that, especially if I work out by myself all the time, it can also be another challenge, I suppose, to overcome.
Right. So, I mean, that sounds like a heavy burden, because you seem to be comparing yourself to who you were, to who you are now, and nearly putting yourself down because you're not who you were, the shape you were in now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And is that a helpful way for you to operate and think about this issue?
Mm, most of the time, not. It does sometimes. I'm like, yeah, I can do it. I did it then. I know what it takes to do that, and I don't want. The thing is, I'm very aware. I don't want to do it. I don't want to get to the same level as that. That's not what my goal is. But so sometimes it does help. I have the tools to do what I want to do,
Mhm.
but then other times um it brings back. I guess it then triggers a lot of other things when I think, okay, that's what I used to be like. I also used to do the sport that I loved as my job, and it was a
Mhm.
different life. And when you sort of go into the quote unquote real world, it I don't know, you start to feel a little bit more normal, I suppose.
Mhm.
And then that sort of changes how I then feel about doing my workouts and my exercise, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So I suppose what I'm curious about is, you have this vision of you want to be fit and healthy. You like lifting weights. You recognize the importance of looking after your heart, and you struggling with the ability to do these things or plan in something you could do. Like, if you were to look forward and be doing this in 4 or 5 weeks, the thing that you wanted to happen, what would be occurring for you? What would be different for you?
Um, I'd be much more organized. I'd have a plan, so I know what I'm doing in each workout, because I do generally have an idea of what I want to do. But I feel like I'd probably have it quite concrete more than it is at the minute. But mainly the main thing would be I'd be getting up a little bit earlier. I've been struggling to get out of bed a bit more, which makes it then I'll basically wait until, okay, now I have to get up, and now I have time for 20 minutes max, 30 minutes max, whatever it may be. Basically, I would have been more consistent, and I would feel solid is the word I'd use to describe it. It's like a solid physical feeling, but then
Mm.
also feel like I can take on any challenge. But it'd be a good feeling of consistency, really.
So I'm curious, this feeling, like you feel as if you could take on any physical challenge, is that something you expect to have before you go to the gym? Is that a feeling that is something that, comes to you before you train?
Not anymore. It would have done before. I would have been in that state for before, but I think that's maybe what I'm looking to feel like before I actually go in. But now I go in knowing, oh, that's sort of, I don't feel that way, and I'm trying to get back that way.
Hmm. Okay. So you're chasing the feeling,
Yeah, that's quite a nice way of saying it, actually.
and this feeling is how you used to feel, but not how you currently feel. Yeah. I'm curious, you know, Is there been times whenever you didn't feel good and you went to the gym when you're a professional athlete or currently? And what was that like for you?
For the longest time, up until I actually retired, it's basically been, I'd probably had never more than a week or two off physical exercise for about 10 years, if not longer. And then after that, I've obviously got more relaxed. Have I been when I've not felt so great? Yeah, most of the time. Like if I go early in the morning, then I'm not feeling like, obviously, when it was my priority before, I'd be like, okay, I eat, relax, I feel best now, let's go to the gym, 2 hours in the gym, let's go home.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's, okay, let's get up. I've managed to get myself to be able to not eat before going, which is quite good because
Yeah.
I love my food. So that's nice. I can have that flexibility to just go and get it done. But then if I don't feel like it, if I'm tired, then I'll just stand there with a bar in my hand and be like, oh, I suppose, have a little nap, then lift. It's worse. But it's just, I don't know. I can still force myself to do it. But I think that's usually when I know exactly what I'm gonna do, and I've had the consistency for a while. That's what helped because
Mm-hmm.
this is what I did last session. I can get excited about a little small goal within the session and know that if I get that done, then that's fine, even if it's only 20 minutes.
Yeah. So actually having a plan and little small goals is really beneficial for you.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't really have any large scale goals necessarily to aim towards. So it's always just week to week. I build my sessions so that they have goals built into them, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be like, okay, one exercise, I'll get a personal record, or not even a personal record, but the best for this time period. 1 week, and I know next week I can beat it, and I can beat it, and then when it stops, I'll just change something.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
And
not massive goals.
yeah, so having some weekly goals that you can challenge yourself is really beneficial. Um, Having this plan is beneficial. Um, you said you can force yourself to do this as well. I'm curious as to if this is important. I mean, it's obviously not that important to you because people force themselves. I force myself to pay taxes, for example, because have to. But I mean, it's important that I don't go to jail for tax evasion or things like that. So this isn't that important to you because you could force yourself to do it, but you're not forcing yourself to do it. So why is it not that important to you?
Well, it is. It's. I think it's an extended transition period from it being number one to now being maybe three, four, five on the list. So there are
Mhm.
times where it is still important to me. It's balancing that with the other things that are important to me as well.
It is still
Um,
important to you. Yeah.
which is sometimes a little. What I'll find is this morning, good example. Alarm set for 7, not too early, but for some reason I used to get up at like 6:30, so because I started work earlier, so I could be in and out. But even at 7, I'm like, I still don't. I just feel not ready to get up and feel tired. So then I'll snooze till 1/4 past. Then it's 1/2 past, and then I've still got time. I can get up, like right, I'm in, and I can be finished by 8 o'clock, a little bit after 8, and still get to work, no problem.
Hmm.
But it'd be so much more beneficial if I just got up at 7
Yeah.
and then had more time. I could relax. I could get more of what I want to get done, so I feel more complete instead of just rushing through it. But then I'll sit there thinking, oh, I don't need to do it. And then at other times, there'll be other things that I feel are more important. I don't know, yeah, it is still very important to me.
It's
It's
very
just
important,
finding that balance. Yeah,
but you need to find balance between things that are in position 1, 2, 3, and 4, and
yeah.
it's now down to 5. What does this balance look like? Yeah, that might be an interesting thing to explore.
Unorganized, I'd say, without
Unorganized.
structure. Yeah, so it's hard to determine. Okay, what position priority number one today? What priority number one on the next day? I was looking for 2, 3, and 4 on that day then. Um, so it's, I guess, the structure and organization of the priorities across maybe just a week scale, just to start with.
Mhm. Okay, so you find your organization across the week really difficult and challenging, and that affects how you then, put the gym in further down the priorities to take care of these reactive things. Is that what's going on for you?
Well, it's more that the gym, I guess, would be more reactive. It's probably the better way to look at it. The other things are quite set because I'm no longer also just thinking about myself. I've got my partner and a small dog that we do quite a lot of training with, and then working, and then sort of studying and trying to start my career. And sort of those are the priorities. And then the gym is reactive to that when I think, okay, do you know what? Tomorrow I can get up and get it done in the morning.
Yeah. You're juggling 5 balls with one hand and trying to walk the dog with the other.
Yeah, thankfully it walks a bit better on the lead now, so it's all right.
Okay. So there's a transition here. This dog is learning a bit to blend in with the family, I suppose, and you're going through a bit of studying, as well as everything else that's going on. So like, there's a lot of transitional things here. After a period of time, they'll end. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's been a bit of a transition for about 2 years, I guess.
Okay. So managing this transition and organizing the transition has been difficult.
Yeah. Quite a bit, yeah.
When that's been going well for you, what have you done to stay on top of your organization?
Talk to my girlfriend about how we want it to be organized so we can sort out what she's doing, what I'm doing, what we're doing with the shared responsibilities. When it's been going well, going to bed on like a little bit early. I go to bed on time, but I struggle to not work is probably the best way of saying it, not do something. So I might go to bed at 10 and then it's, well, I'm going to read this book now until I sleep. And then it might be a little bit closer to 11, which means that when I wake up at 7, it's a little bit hard to get up. So that's one thing. When it's been going well, it's that structure, but that ties into the first part of communicating with my partner, like having that structure. So I feel free to do, for example, exercising. That I don't think I'm rushing to do something else afterwards. That's the next priority. I don't have to rush. There's like always this time pressure when I do it.
Yeah.
So that's not been there. And then having that plan, I suppose, as well. That's simple enough for me to get into. But to be honest, the biggest thing with that plan, the best I've felt doing that was when I actually had someone give me the plan. I didn't have to think of it myself. Because it feels like, okay, I've got all these other things I'm thinking about. Now I should think of what's the most optimal plan that I could possibly do now.
Yeah.
So when I sort of outsource that was much better.
Okay. Is that a solution to your problem then?
It's certainly, I'd imagine, to be quite a big part of it. Because then I feel I could also outsource some of the, what's the word? Outsource some of the, not responsibility, but my
Accountability?
accountability. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you'd like to be held accountable. Whenever you were a professional athlete, you were held accountable by your own standards, but you were obviously very exposed. Now you're kind of hiding in the dark a little bit because you've got other priorities like your career, your studying, work, dog, girlfriend, other things that are your priorities, and they can't hide in the dark.
Yeah.
So change your focus to, make other areas of your life grow, and this health and wellness and fitness has been shaken up a bit. We've been talking for about 20 minutes. I'm just curious, has there been anything that you've said that has kind of surprised you or stood out as, I didn't think of it like that?
I think the way you put things, when you said about chasing the feeling, that was to really hit the nail on the head there, because it is a feeling, and that's why I enjoyed it so much. And that's what's missing, the feeling of wanting to do it, of enjoying it, the feeling that gives me generally as a whole. I feel like when I'm in my when I was in my best shape, I had it was a bit of almost an aura, this solid feeling. So that was really interesting to think about that feeling, because I feel like that's something I could potentially work with.
Yeah.
And think, what was the feeling? How can I find that feeling again? And then the organisation, the sort of weekly thing, and doing that with my partner. I think that's something that we've also talked about that recently as well. So that's something that we should action, and that would help to sort of free me, so I feel free to do this. Because, like I said, I always feel like I have to be doing something productive almost, and yeah, the gym sort of doesn't fit in that anymore.
Feel as if you have to be doing something productive.
Yeah, I struggle not to, when I do something, to not do it all like this. Just this perfect. It has to be right and be very, very good. It's yeah, it's why I handed pretty much every single essay in for my masters at like 4, 5, 6 in the morning, despite being probably fine just before. But it had to be everything checked, everything perfect, and everything of a very high standard.
Instead of doing a shit job on your essays or a shit job on your training, you'd rather have those aspects shit in your life.
Which aspects?
Well, the aspects of overworking on the assignments, or the fact that you would rather do a perfect training session than do like a bad training session, for example, and not feel good about it. It has to be perfect. So you'd rather like actually just be unhealthy than just do a poor substandard session that, you know, would be of benefit somewhat more so than nothing.
I think I'm okay with it being, especially because it's not as a bigger priority. I'm well aware that it doesn't need to be of such a high standard. It just needs to be effective. But I think by doing it a little bit, it reveals that it's not perfect, or it's not of the high standard that I liked before, if that makes sense. So I'm happy with to go to the gym and doing 2 exercises. That's what I do sometimes because they're effective. I know how to program exercise and make it effective. But then that in the same sort of breath shows me that it's also not, or the feeling before, it's before I'm happy, during and after it feels good. So I've done it, I'm happy with myself. But before, it's this feeling of, I know, okay, it's just a big resistance, maybe because also I think it's not going to be what it could or would have been potentially, despite my goals being very small for them, for the actual session itself.
You want to be invincible, but you're put off by the idea that you might not feel good when you're chasing these small goals.
Um, it feels like it's yeah, like sometimes it's a bunch of different things. It feels like it all quite, like I said before, it can end up being a little. There's no like this goal of being ready for anything is quite arbitrary. It's like it's not. It's a good idea to be ready for anything, but then it's not very specific. So um, I can get excited for the small goals, but then if I think too much about it, then I'll think, okay, that's not what I used to be able to do, or it's not very much. So maybe it can be quite, build some resistance that way and demotivating, I guess.
Why do you want to be ready for anything?
Because I enjoy doing things in life, whether it's being able to just go on a long run with a friend, or go skiing with my girlfriend's family, or take my dog out on a long walk, or do anything. I just enjoy being physical and doing things that are active and competing. I still want to be able to at least compete when I do those things and maybe win.
Yeah.
I'll be absolutely honest. A large part of it is I still like to win and feel like that I'm better in certain things. That's quite a big thing. So I have to wrestle with that sometimes.
Mm. That's a difficult thing to let go of, that you're not as good as you once were, and you're chasing that feeling of being invincible.
Yeah, it's redirect. Like that's what I've tried to redirect. I always thought, okay, once I finish with sport, I'll redirect that same skills into what I want to pursue after that.
Mm-hmm.
But I still want to feel physically well and be physically ready for things and be in good shape, look good, feel good.
If I was to ask you, out of 10, 10 being very much definitely, and 0 being not at all, how capable do you think you are of going to the gym and achieving these goals?
I want to say a 10 because I know I can do it.
Okay.
But if I then pause and think about realistically, I could say 10, but these feelings might creep back. I'd probably say an 8.
So
No.
8 out of 10 capable. You know where the gym is. You know where you need to go. You can work out some program yourself, or you can get a program from somebody or something like that.
Yeah.
You're fairly capable. Right. Next question. Out of 10, same thing. 10 being definitely 100% confident of it. 0 is no, not confident at all. The opportunity. Do you have the opportunity to do this? So 10 is, yeah, I'm confident I get the opportunities to go to the gym, do these things to get healthy. 0 is not at all, not confident that I get the opportunity.
Confident to get the opportunity. I probably confident to get the opportunity probably puts me about a 4 or 5.
Okay. So
Um,
why is it a 4 or 5 and not a 0?
it's a 4 and 5 and not a 0 because it's all there. I've got all the tools. I've got all the. I don't even have to leave my house to go to the gym. It's all there. It's just, yeah, it's all there. I've got everything there. It's just a small sort of stepping stone that would stop me from doing it. It's just overcoming this sort of little bit of resistance that I have mainly in the morning, because once I'm in there, it's no problem. But it's not a 0 because I have all the tools there.
So you have all the equipment there, and this is literally the opportunity that's stopping you is that feeling. But is there anything else about opportunity then?
Yeah, I think it ties into sort of just organization. So I feel I'm allowed the opportunity to do it. Like, because there's all the pressure basically for me to do it in the morning. And if it doesn't happen in the morning, if it doesn't happen first thing, it's not going to happen. So opportunity would link into having a bit more of a structure of the week with myself and with my partner. So then I can think, okay, if I don't do it first thing, I could also do it after work, or I could do it a little bit later in the afternoon on a weekend, whatever it may be. I like getting it done first thing, but it's also nice to relax, especially if I've been busy and doing other things. So then I'm not feeling like I'm just ticking a box and rushing through it, but I can then take my 1 hour, an hour and a half, and sort of get that feeling of what I used to have, which is really why I like what you said about chasing the feeling, because then I feel like I would have the feeling of time and enjoyment and that being important in that moment.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a lot. It's not so clear how it all works out exactly, which is why it's quite nice when you said those things about chasing the feeling, and when we discuss structure and some of the other things, that it's unraveling it and making it clear for myself.
Yeah. I mean, you also talked about, you mentioned the planning the week or planning how you want things to go with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's a very important thing. Um, Although my opinion doesn't matter. So I mean, you can think what you, but you want about that. But I think actually what you've expressed is, um, when you plan it through with your girlfriend, it means it's more likely the opportunity will occur. How
Yeah.
you structured out. Um, So there's that, there's the feeling. The other question I was going to ask you out of 10 of how motivated are you? So like 0 being not motivated at all, and then 10 being full steam ahead, 100% motivated.
I feel motivated to make the change. I don't necessarily feel motivated to actually exercise. Like it doesn't excite me like it used to do. It's more of a means to an end now, which is a bit different. But I know I feel so much better when I do it, and then it snowballs.
So wait a minute, you're telling me if this was exciting, this would be worth doing.
Yeah, I don't feel. I don't think okay, I'm excited, and I'm excited to then make the plan and then to execute it.
Right, so let's say training is like 0 in terms of not exciting. What
Yeah,
would move it up to a 1 for you?
to a one,
Yeah.
just a bit less time pressure would be nice.
No, I'm talking about excitement. I mean, I'm really curious about that. Like, what does
Yeah, that would move the excitement because or yeah, maybe okay, maybe that's all right. That's what I think. To make it exciting, to not do it by myself, to be honest, or not even to do it with somebody, but to do it in an environment with other people around.
Mhm.
So
So,
basically, I just go in the garage by myself.
yeah, one of the things I'm thinking here, is it all right if I suggest something to you?
Yep.
One of the things I'm thinking here is I've always found it really good and exciting if you go for a walk and then whenever you see a policeman, pull up your hood and say, run, and then start running, and they will chase after you. And then you have to like,
Yeah.
slow down. Oh, I didn't realize you were chasing me there. But it makes your training a lot more exciting because you've got somebody keep coming after you. Uh,
Mm.
and puts a bit of pressure on you. What are your thoughts on that?
It sounds like for me, World Cup competition is what it said to me on accountability. So when I, for example, had the plan from somebody, I did I did it because I knew for him because I knew it would help him if I did the plan because it would help him with his business and stuff like that. He also said that nobody's ever did it with 100% sort of completion. So I was like, right, well, okay, I will be the first to do it then. And then also, I knew I was also part of a little group at the same time. So it was just the social support was there as well. But competition, that always helps. So that's what that reminded me of there, even though it was a policeman chasing you, but it was the thrill of it. The thrill of
Right.
chasing something.
It's a form of competition. Um,
Yeah.
right. So, we've been talking for nearly half an hour. I want to try and put this together
Yeah.
because you've said so many things. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering if you were going to put it together before I think I can put it together, how would you put all the things you've dropped out today in terms of like these are things that might change what I'm going to do?
Number one, I will talk to my girlfriend about it because I know she would support me in making the changes that would help me to do this. So there'd only be, small changes to our plan to allow me to feel like I can do it. Um, I would potentially look at, as I said, going to bed just a little bit early, just so I feel a bit more refreshed, just so I can get up, so I can get it done
Hmm.
without the sort of same time pressure. Because that'll just help snowball it. That's why I know once I start, it's good.
Hmm.
So that's one thing. Um, and then maybe I look at some way that I can find to make it competitive in some way, whether it be with myself or with others, or have some sort of potentially more specific goal than be ready for whatever might come my way. Because then that can narrow sort of what my training might look like down a bit better. Give me something to look at.
Okay. Well, I mean, you seem to have summarized it much better than I could. The sleep, the discussing with your girlfriend, having a plan, some clear goals. I'm curious if you see being ready for anything as being ready for having an emotion of not wanting to do something and still forcing ahead anyway. Why is that not something you can be ready for? Does that fall under the category of anything, maybe?
Yeah, it would do. I feel like one part of it is also I feel like I've done it for so long, forced myself to do things. It's like I said to my friend the other day, I said after I do a session after a while, I'd COVID like a couple of weeks ago, so I was like, right, getting back on the horse. And he said, never get off the horse, something to that effect. And I said, well, it's a horse I've been on for 10 years now. I don't need to, it's a little bit different. So that comes in every now and then as well, where I know I have the skills physically, mentally to do things that are hard. But at the same time, I think, well, I don't always need to do it anymore. I can relax a little bit. But I think it will be a good chance, now you've mentioned that, to practice what I eventually would like to start preaching, and use these opportunities that I have when I'm struggling to use some psychological skills or use whatever I think would be appropriate for myself to achieve that.
Yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right. And yeah, it would be a chance to be ready for those sort of things.
Yeah. When you take your dog out for a walk, obviously
Yeah.
it does its business.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like picking up after it?
I don't mind it.
You don't mind it? Do you, do you go out and pick up after other random dogs whose owners haven't picked up yet?
No.
So you don't like it that much?
No.
Okay. And do you wear a glove or how do you pick it up?
We use a bag.
Use a bag. So you don't like it that much that you would use your bare hand?
No.
Right. Okay. But you like your dog,
Yeah.
but you don't like picking up after it.
It's not my favorite thing about it. No.
It's not your favorite thing about it, but you still do it.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between motivation and commitment.
Yeah.
Motivation is the dog and having fun, and you've got this four-legged friend, and it's great. Commitment is picking up the shit.
Yeah.
And when it comes to commitment, it's like, I don't like doing this, and I'm going to make it a bit easier for myself. I'm going to use a bag instead of my bare hand. So we use tools and strategies to make things easier for ourselves. So I think where you're at is you want to feel invincible, and you also want your sessions to be perfect. And actually, a tool and strategy for you to make it easier would be to train yourself to do imperfect sessions. So actually, can I go and do a week of doing poor training and bad training to prove to myself that I can actually suffer through doing bad training? That's not like, half the time, half the effort, and say, right, I can do a week of bad training and mentally commit to doing something I don't like doing.
Yeah.
That will actually make you more robust for the future training. What are your thoughts on that as an idea?
It's initially I didn't like it because I thought I don't have anything to commit to. So when you use that word, it made me realize, there's nothing that I feel committed to in terms of exercise that would then create the motivation or allow me to find that motivation when it's a struggle, because there's no overarching goal really. But then as you expanded on it, the idea of doing it imperfectly and being fine to commit to a bad week of training sounded like what I do from time to time, where I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll just do it for 20 minutes and I feel better, and then it usually continues from that into being better and better. So I think it would be a good starting point to commit to a bad week of training and affirm it to myself in that way.
I feel a little bit redundant here, because I mean, you've come up with all the answers, and I don't really know what else to offer you. I suppose just to wrap things up, is there any questions you have for me, or any thoughts on where you are now versus where you were at the start of the session?
My biggest fear, it's not really a question, it might lead to one, but my biggest fear is when my alarm goes off and I lay there and it's like a wave of pressure where I'm like, I know I need to get up, but then I start ruminating about all the different things. That's when I know it's going to be key to put something in place. And it may well be that it's going to be just a self-talk of commit to a bad week of training.
Okay.
So I think it's not really a question, but it's almost another summary there. But that's probably now going to be I think I've got the plan now of what I'm going to do for the next
So
week.
that's the weak point.
Yeah.
That's the weak point, is that alarm, yeah?
Yeah, it's just that it's getting started. Okay. And then that obviously then ties into, well, the pressure of, if I don't do it now, it's not going to happen, so let's do it now. But then it's later and later and later. But
do you want
having that the solid self-talk maybe of condensing some of these thoughts down, also combined with the conversation and the structure and that sort of thing, because obviously help into that one phrase might get me going now.
Okay, so some self-talk, something to say to yourself to get out of bed.
Yeah.
What might
maybe
that sound like?
I think I'm just going to go with that, commit to a bad week of training. Not it's what I know will help. It'll get the ball rolling. It's come from yourself, which it will all just tie in to make myself want to do it more. And then that tied in with having the structure, so knowing I can do it, knowing there's no resistance from external parties like my girlfriend or anything like that, or from whoever. Add that with a structure, a bit more planning, get all my kit ready, those basic things, and I think it should get the ball rolling again.
You want to be harder to kill, and you want to be healthier, and you want to feel good, competitive, strong, invincible. It strikes me that the biggest thing about being invincible is going through shit. The only thing that shit is invincible. When you wake up in the morning and you feel like shit, it's time to be invincible, because you're not invincible if you lie in bed. You're not invincible if you hit snooze. You're invincible if you feel like shit and get up and go for it. What are your thoughts on that?
It's something I agree with, and to do good things, you obviously have to go through those things. But as I said, it's something I've done enough where I'm like, I don't have to be invincible today, sort of thing. I know that comes with time. I think invincible is probably the wrong word. I do just want to feel physically fit and ready to do any sort of thing that comes my way. It's a bit different from invincible, but but then times I do feel like that. So maybe that is also something I can add in. If you're like, yeah, okay, invincible isn't going to happen laying in bed, because that's also true.
Right, you've given me an issue here. I want to.
I'm giving myself an issue.
Oh, perfectly fine.
I think it's the balance between pushing in this direction and balancing that with that I don't have to, and make sure everything else, all the buckets of water filled up as well. It's that balance that we talked about at the beginning still.
Okay, so actually, and this is the other thing that sort of struck me as a concern, if you don't mind me sharing, is that a degree of maybe perfectionism to the point that might be too much.
Oh yeah.
So actually pulling back and saying, I'm going to do a load of half sessions or a load of bad sessions that just get enough done.
Yeah. Yeah.
What your goal needs to be. Your goal is nearly to be, how invincible can I feel on the least amount of training?
Yeah, that's a really good way of saying it. How invincible can I feel with the least amount of training? Yeah, the minimum effective dose, and then that hooks me back in if it's good. If it's effective and I feel like it's working, then I'm like, okay, I can squeeze a bit more in, and it builds up.
Okay.
So I'll build it to like a 4, 6, 8 week period.
I've got one question I want to ask then, and then I'll pull this together. You're lying in bed tomorrow, okay?
Yeah.
Alarm goes off 7 o'clock. If I was going to say I'm going to give you £4 million for maybe that you're a professional athlete, maybe it's more than that. Maybe 400 million is maybe what you need, right? So I'm going to give you 400 million if you get out of bed on the first alarm. Okay. What are you going to do that's going to guarantee that you get out of bed if it's worth 400 million?
I'm going to have all my kit ready. So my clothes, basically. Kit's an extreme way of saying it. So my clothes ready. I'm going to know what I'm going to do when I get to the gym, for the most part, the main thing. But I think if I get up at that time, then I should be able to get it all done. So I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay in bed, and before I go to sleep, I'm going to think about it and visualize it, because that's always helped me, because I can feel it when I'm doing it. And then when the alarm goes off, I'm going to think about those couple of things, about committing to a bad week of training, back to this conversation, and the imaginary 400 million quid that you're going to give me.
It's not imaginary. No,
that'll be all right then. But just what that represents is literally what I sort of mean there.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that sounds like a great plan. It sounds like you know what you need to do. Thank you very much for stepping forward and being a volunteer today. It's massively appreciated and a benefit to other people. Hopefully some benefit to yourself and your fitness journey. So thank you very much, Jacob. I'm going to throw this open to the group. If people have questions about that session, about things they might have noticed or interested or intrigued about, or anything else to do with this or sports psychology. So if anybody has a question, please do feel free to just unmute yourself and shout out, or drop it into the chat box, whichever suits you the best.
Can I just say thank you as well for the sessions and for last week as well. That's part of the reason why I put myself forward, because I thought, am I mute? No, I'm not.
No.
For what you're putting on now, it's just fantastic. So I thought, if no one else does, I'll put myself forward there just to say thank you for the sessions that you're putting on. Because I watched last week and it was really, really good.
Well, thank you very much for volunteering. It takes the pressure off me, because one of these days I'll sit here and nobody appear, and I'll be like, well, no, that's interesting.
Just to add to that, and for my side, this is sort of the direction I'm going into. I've just finished my master's in performance psychology. I've done some training in MI, and so to be on the other side of it as well was really quite interesting as well. So thank you, basically, is what I want to say.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you very much, and hopefully you can share this with some people that are also interested. Thank you very much, Jacob. That's much appreciated. So do we have any questions about tonight then from anyone in the audience?
Hi, Hugh.
Hello. Who we got there?
Hi.
Great. Hello. How are you?
Good. I'm just wondering about what I'm assuming you see a lot of in sports psychology amongst my client group. A kind of different version of that is that through people mainly with body image concerns, is that there's quite a common theme of kind of comparison to their past self or their past identity. For example, people who used to be dancers, even professionally, who are struggling post-career or further down the line, women who are postpartum, who compare their identity and their body prior to pregnancy, same with menopausal women as well. and what I'm assuming you see in sports psychology, which is once people retire or drop out of their sport, that they have a lot of difficulty in that identity shift. And it kind of, when Jacob was talking, sounded like there was a bit of that as well. And I'm wondering about your thoughts on that. Like, what do you think is kind of the main sticking point for people, or the main sticking points for people when they have a big identity shift in that way? And how, or some of the ways I guess we can cater for that.
So it's very interesting, and well, we could look at how we think about identity on a broader scale as well. So if you look at yourself, like, so I'm obviously Irish, but I probably prefer to see myself as human, which is much more broad. And then the other aspect of this is that there's a degree of people will say nobody is better than me, but people won't take the same and opposing view, which is I am better than nobody. And both those things are true. If one's true, the other's true, you know. But it's phrased slightly differently. And I think this is a thing, is when we have an identity, we're essentially judging ourselves as being of some worth. And that's where the problem lies, is actually that there's some worth in my identity. There's no worth in me being Irish. It's just, you know, everyone else's nationality is just the same as my nationality. No nationality is better or worse. And similarly with bodies. So I think this is the core concept that underlies whether it's postpartum females with you know, comparing their bodies in different stages of life, whether it's athletes or whether it's anything else really, or even amputees. It's actually, where do you place your value as a human being? And when you get down to that then allows you to understand things. But like that's a cognitive or philosophical change, and that's kind of beyond the scope of. It's a little bit beyond the scope of MI. I mean, I could certainly go in here and ask questions and be more Socratic and more challenging with my complex reflections. But that then would lead me down to needing a different framework. But I think the other thing there is actually asking them about where do you place value in your life and where do you want to be, because the past isn't with us. It's gone. And we can't stay there, I suppose. In terms of things that I do an exercise from REBT, Big I, Little I, which is really useful. I'll just demonstrate that for the group. So Big I, Little I. So let me see. If you could, without divulging your identity, could you give me a description about you? So tell me a couple of things about you.
Okay. I'm Australian. I am a mother.
Yeah. Have you seen a kangaroo?
Pardon?
Seen a kangaroo?
Seen a kangaroo.
Good. Okay. What else?
I like weightlifting. Okay.
So there's a big I, and in it I put down 4 things: mother, Australian, seen a kangaroo, and like lifting. Any one of those one things doesn't determine the whole thing. And this is called overgeneralization, whereby people will go, because I win a medal in a sport, I'm great. But actually, it doesn't say anything else about the rest of your life. And it's difficult to judge that as a human being. Like, just because you win a medal doesn't mean you're actually great. Just because you achieve something doesn't make you a great human being. And this overgeneralization is when we place an emphasis on a part of our identity being bigger than the whole. And that's what is occurring in all of these cases. So I would start with that exercise to like actually get people to understand why they're placing too much focus on small aspects of their identity. I think, where would I go with this? The way that this is best explained is if you're walking down the street and you see a bit of pepperoni in the ground, you would go, there's some pepperoni. But when you go into a pizza shop, you don't go, oh, there's a big pepperoni. When you see a pizza, you go, there's a pizza and part of it is a pepperoni. So we don't overgeneralize parts of a pizza to the whole, because that doesn't make sense. That's a false judgment, and that's the same sort of approach that I would do with identity. The other thing, I use an example of like a guitar. Like if you've only got one good string on a guitar, that's going to get under a lot of pressure when you're playing it, and when it snaps, then the guitar is no use. And we then use this example of, right, in your life, what are your 6 strings that you've got so that you can play a good tune? It might be sport, it might be your body, but it's also going to be these other things. So we try and grow those areas of their identity. Yeah, does that answer your question? I mean, I could talk a little bit more, but sorry, one more thing is, you're at more risk of mental health issues and stress if you've got a unidimensional, one-dimensional identity. And that's why this idea of the guitar, for example, is really beneficial, because people then can then go and say, right, I need more strings, and how am I putting into those strings, and get a bit of balance. The other aspect of this is, if I go and grab somebody's Instagram and say, look at the last 20 pictures and categorize them, you used to be able to go, you've got this in your life and this in your life and this in your life. But now everybody just puts up like, very core things, and it's all censored. That how people use Instagram is different. But generally speaking, like the last 20 images, what have you put up? Categorize them into groups and go like, is that you? What's missing in your life? And if it's all sport, then where's your family? Where's your this? Where's your that? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. I mean, I think it's I kind of the analogies that you've used are great. I do use the big eye, little eye. It's quite effective, and I think it's the way I also try to explain it to people is that it's actually I think it's very precarious to kind of pin all your hopes and all your well-being on one aspect of your identity, or to over evaluate that aspect, because it's, particularly if it's related to, well, it's, I guess, related to anything, because it's probably not that much that's going to be consistent over a lifetime. I really like the guitar analogy, and but yeah, I was just interested on your thoughts, because I think like I said, there seems to be kind of an ongoing theme there of over identification that needs to be addressed.
Yeah,
thank
you. Yeah, I think it's definitely a big thing and something to be aware of. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions in the group from anyone?
I'd be intrigued to know where MI fits in with your sort of practice as a whole when you're working with somebody. Is it sort of more an intake thing? Is it a bit sort of the middle work when you try to put the case together, and where it sort of fits together in all of that for you?
All day, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. There isn't a place where MI doesn't have benefit. And if you think of it, whenever I take somebody in, I want to take them in and build a strong relationship, and that's what MI allows people to do. But also, behavior change is confidence. You don't make changes if you're not confident. So again, MI's got a strategy for improving confidence. Whereas you look at, the model of confidence from Albert Bandura, which talks about mastery, vicarious experiences, all this sort of stuff. It's well and good saying these things, but actually how an MI shows us how we create confidence by the use of affirmations. And that's basically, if I listen through to your session and I hear affirmations, I'll know there's a higher likelihood of behavior change occurring within that person. And I think for me, it's also something I train up support staff in. So I've trained up our nutritionist, our physio, our coaches. They all get trained up in bits of MI as needed, so that they can become more consistent in their communication. So that's of real benefit to them. So yeah, it's nonstop. In fact, also the way I deliver RABT, I deliver it more like MI. Sometimes my MI sounds a bit more like RABT, because I can get quite into pointy areas and, get difficult and ask hard questions. But yeah, even when I deliver RABT, you can feel the AMI that flows through it with the questions and how I go about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always there, and you can use it for many different things depending on what the aim is, building rapport or generating confidence.
Yeah, I think
exactly what the aim was.
the other thing that's massive is group facilitation. Actually, I no longer present things. I go in and discuss things with people. And because my presentations are not boring PowerPoints, so using MI as a framework to actually pull out of a group what's going on, as opposed to dictate and shock and talk them to death. We have another question there. You've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, folks. Thanks a million. I really, really enjoyed listening to that this evening. Hugh, one of the things that I've, as a listener, kind of found really powerful was the kind of challenge piece. When you flipped it a wee bit and you were asking Jacob, okay, so it's not important to you then, that kind of thing. And I sort of thought, gosh, is there, I suppose from your perspective as a practitioner, because it could be quite risky, is there something in you, like, you can kind of sense when to go there, when it's
okay, yeah. So if you listen through to that session again, you probably realize that it changes, and there's a structure in the conversation, and it doesn't follow the structure. So the structure is engage, focus in on what we want to change, evoke out why the change is important, and then plan. Right. But at any point, I might get jump for one or jump to another. I don't stay necessarily and go through that order. It all goes on where Jacob is. But the thing was that we kind of really understood things, but we weren't challenging Jacob. We had to actually put in something that was a bit more robust. So what I was doing when I was challenging was I did a side with the negative. An example of this might be, there's no point in you quitting smoking. You might as well just, go ahead and die young.
Yeah.
And that's a strong thing to say.
Yeah.
Very few people would go, yeah, you're right. And if they do say, yeah, you're right, you go, okay, I know exactly where you are now.
Yeah.
So it's not risky, but it's also not risky because I'm not doing it to put him down. I'm not doing it from a bad place. I've built the relationship in the first 20 minutes. I'm doing it from a point of view of, I'm going to say this, and then because of that, he's going to say the opposite, which occurred a number of times. So I said, it's not important for you to do this. And no, it is important. That's exactly what he said back. And then as soon as he said that, I reflected back. It is important for you to do this.
Yeah.
So he's saying it, then he's hearing me say exactly it back to him. And then that's sort of lifting him up and pulling him in this direction of this is important, because it needs to be important, and I need to be confident if I'm going to change my behavior. And generally I'm looking for 8 out of 10 on things to know that, that's a good level of confidence and importance for behavior change to occur. So you can make mistakes. If he's turned around and said to me, no, not appropriate, that I don't want to change or whatever it is, that's fine. I just go, I would go back in and just listen and understand more. So yeah, and it just depends really. I think if you're communicating well with that whole spirit of partnership, acceptance, compassion, and evocation, you're actually in a safe place to say things that might come across in normal conversation as bad. What are your thoughts on that, Claire?
I think it's really, really interesting, and I loved I loved how natural the conversation felt. Like, that's one thing that really struck me. Like, you were like, it was, you were using that to understand, but genuinely understand it better. And it felt like that, like the whole, for both of you, it just felt like a genuine conversation. And I think there's something very powerful in that, because every question took you, it's a real privilege to listen to it, because it took you to a new level of understanding, and actually kind of stopped me. I have an awful tendency sometimes to kind of go, yeah, I know where you are. And it's like, no, you don't, Claire, you don't. And that's the clever bit about it. And I think that was just, it was I just found it very powerful listening to that, actually, just the way that those kind of challenges worked in that tonight, especially for a brief session like that. Really cool. So thank you.
You're welcome. So just the name of those challenges, there was 2 types I did. There's siding with the negative,
Okay.
which is side with the negative, and the other type is it was a complex reflection also. So complex, so that you get simple reflections, which are just reflecting back what's going on. Complex ones are a bit deeper and more challenging. So siding with the negative. The other one was a double-sided one. We're going on one side you want this, and the other side you want this. You know, you want to get fit, but you don't want to do the work, you know. So
that was
those there. And then I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just saying, here, you want 2 things, talk to me about that. That's a difficult place to be in. And that ambivalence between those 2 things, that can be, I want ice cream and I want beer, but I can't afford both. That can be, I want this surgery, I don't want that surgery, but I don't want to lose my leg, right? That could be, you know, two hard places. You can have two nice places you want, beer and ice cream, 2 hard places. Or you can have, in this case, moving from a soft place of, you know, the bed to the hard place of effort and working out to get the next soft place of feeling invincible. So that's the ambivalence between those ends of the scale. So thanks very much for your question.
Good stuff. Thank you.
You're very welcome, guys. So our time is up. If you want to, unless anybody's got a quick question, just stick your hand up or shout out. But I'll send out the recording, and thank you very much. Please, can you share this with that you're enjoying this with other people, so we can have more volunteers come forward to speak, because that's obviously the important thing that keeps the thing going. So thank you very much. So if you're enjoying this, please, I do ask that you share it with people and say, check this out. Thanks very much, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, guys. Thank you. And thank you again, Jacob. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. If you're interested in getting somebody who's trained in motivational interviewing to work with you, there's a list of people on my website who I've personally trained up in motivational interviewing. However, if you're interested in getting trained up, get in touch with me. A massive thanks to the person who stepped forward anonymously with their problem. I look forward to helping another anonymous person take a step forward in the right direction for them next week. If you're interested in being part of the live audience, please sign up. My YouTube channel can be subscribed to and has a host of playlists and videos there which are related to motivational interviewing and performance psychology. If you want to subscribe or share that, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. Look after yourself, and I look forward to seeing you in the next live podcast.